Okay, what's going on, everybody? We're here, we're live. I want to thank you all for joining me today. If you can see and hear me clearly, please drop a one in the live chat and then we can get today's stream started. It looks like I'm lagging just a little bit, but it doesn't look too ugly. So it is what it is. We'll just keep it pushing. All right. So drop a one in the live stream if you can see and hear me clearly. Thank you very much. Quantum Mania, always with the great comments before the show gets started to boost my confidence up. Quantum Mania says LOL TD put out more quality content than Amazon Prime and Netflix combined. I appreciate you, Quantum Mania, for always uplifting my spirits prior to a stream getting started. Thank you very much for that. Always making me blush before a live stream. So now, as I'm waiting for the ones to come in, if you haven't already, please make sure you hit the like button. That's one of the most important things you can do. Let me rephrase that. That is the most important thing that you can do, because that will help assist in making sure that the notification goes out to all those that are subscribed to this channel. And it also helps this video permeate throughout the YouTube algorithm so that this video will get out to those who need to see it. Also, if you're new to the channel, please make sure you hit the subscribe button as well as the bell notification next to the subscribe button so you can be notified whenever I release a new video. And second to lastly, make sure you share this video out on your social media platforms. And when you do that, that not only notifies people that I'm currently live right now, but it also has the same effect within the YouTube algorithm as well, as it pertains to assisting this video getting pushed out to those that are interested in this type of content. And lastly, if you're not already, please make sure you follow me on Telegram. I have 300 some odd followers on Telegram. The goal is to get to 1,000 followers by the end of this year. You can follow me on Telegram. The link will be pinned in the live chat above. It's in the description box below, and it will be pinned in the comment section below once this live stream ends. So now let's get into the show, right? So as you saw in the thumbnail of today's video is Brandon Johnson doesn't care about Black people, right? And I'm going to prove that to be true, but I think we all kind of understand that by now, right? And most importantly, the title of today's stream is called Brandon Johnson Ignores the Concerns about Brandon Johnson ignores Black Chicago's concerns about migrant crisis impact. He ignores it. And we're going to get into all that today. Now, the first thing that I want to do is I want to have us pay a visit to a woman by the name of Natasha Dunn. Natasha Dunn is a part of a collective in the city of Chicago that's currently suing Brandon Johnson, his administration, and basically the local body politics of Chicago in an attempt to preserve, I believe it is a South Shore high school, from becoming a migrant shelter. Now, I thought this high school had already been taken over already, but apparently it hasn't been. And they're suing. I believe they filed the actual lawsuit September 26th of last month, right? And now they're just holding press conferences and just trying to get more press around it. So what I want to do is I want to go to that press conference that they had. I believe it was about 2 days ago, maybe it was yesterday. And I want us to listen to what Natasha had to say, because there's something very critical, at least critical to me, that she said that I need to highlight and point out. So let's get into that right now, and then we'll get back into the discussion.
We are not upset with the individuals who are being allowed to cross the borders into America. Let me make that very clear, because people get it confused. We are, however, outraged with the government's response and our elected officials' blatant disregard to the local crisis Black families and children are facing now in our city. It is disingenuous and highly disrespectful to come into neighborhoods that have suffered decades of disinvestment, redlining, poverty, and violence to tell them you're taking resources away only to give it to another group of people that you allowed to cross the border illegally. How dare you put these poor people against us, especially because the very reason you claim they're here to seek asylum is the same reason and terror and injustice Black people face today. Chicago is working on an issue without addressing the current issue that it has with the communities that are suffering. And we're seeing resources fly out to help, but we're not getting that same type of support at the magnitude we're seeing now. And to expect us to foot the bill and hand over our already limited resources, public parks and school buildings that have been unjustly closed in the first place. Now you're putting a strain on our police officers and stations, obstructing their ability to do their jobs, serve our community, and our community to go into police stations to receive services. In addition, it's inhumane to welcome people only to have them sleeping on floors in buildings and in tents that cannot withstand the wind of Chicago. Brandon Johnson ran on the promise that he would listen to our community. And in the beginning of this crisis stated that he would not re-traumatize those communities that are still suffering from the impact of school closing, red line, and violence.
Boom. Let's stop right there. Brandon Johnson never said any of that. Brandon Johnson never said he was going to do anything for Black Chicago. Those words never came out of his mouth. This is one of 1,000,001 cases that have been happening since now and forever of Black Americans continuing to fall for the okie doke as it pertains to the benign neglect policy, right? The benign neglect policy, for those of you who don't know, as many of you do know already, is simply a policy in which, and it's mainly practiced by Democrats almost exclusively at this point, right? In which politicians will never directly speak to any issues that concern Black Americans directly. The conversation will always be rerouted to people of color, minorities, marginalized groups, and will always be rerouted and spoken about within codified language, right? One of the terms codified language or codified words that Brandon Johnson loves to use is disinvested communities. He's always saying disinvested communities, disinvested communities, disinvested communities. And what happens with that is as we continue to fall for this benign neglect okie doke, where they don't address you directly, but through codified language, it leaves you to just simply assume that Brandon Johnson is talking about you. It leaves you to simply assume that these Democratic Party politicians are speaking about you. You're left with the assumption, and you vote on them based on an assumption, but you don't vote for them based on the fact of what they said they were going to do for you. Brandon Johnson never said he was going to do a thing for Black Chicago, but he was always very clear, as I've pointed out numerous times. He was always very clear. Let me pull this article up for you right now on what he was going to do for the so-called migrants. He was very clear on that. Before he even became mayor, he made it abundantly clear what he was going to do. Chicago mayoral candidate Brandon Johnson unveils plan to support migrants. Here goes another article, one of many. Mayoral challenger Brandon Johnson unveils plan to help migrants, refugees, and immigrants. There are no articles that exist whatsoever in which they are breaking down Brandon Johnson's plan for Black Chicago. That does not exist. It doesn't exist because he never said he was going to do anything for you. And it is so upsetting, frustrating, and sad at the same time to continue to see our people fall for this banana in a tailpipe as it pertains to benign neglect, and you operating off of assumptions. You're assuming he's going to do something that he never said he was going to do, but he always made it abundantly clear what he was going to do for the so-called migrants. And now here you are pressing charges against his administration in the hopes that you can hold on to what little resources that you have left. We have to learn our lessons concerning this because we're running out of time. The clock is ticking. It's the fourth quarter. There's about 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and Black America is down about 50 points. That's the current situation that we're in right now. And if we're going to keep falling for the banana in the tailpipe concerning these type of tactics that these Democrats exercise on you, well, then you can call this the game all but over. We lost. Pretty much, point blank period. We lost. Now, let's get back into what she had to say. There's only maybe about 30 seconds left, and then we're going to move on.
We are here today demanding that the city of Chicago and Brandon Johnson stop disrupting park programs, taking away from our children and families that depend on those services. We want him to stop using public school buildings as housing because they're not zoned as such. And specifically for this building was promised to the community, and our children deserve a high school. A high school. We want to reopen this as one because we do not have a neighborhood high school. That school over there is not a neighborhood school. It's a selective enrollment that actually restricts our neighborhood kids from going. So that's a violation of our civil rights, and we want this building. We pay taxes for it.
I just might, Slauson girl. You know, I've thought about it once before. She said you should run for office. I actually consider. I gave that serious thought. I believe it was about a year ago. I just looked into it a little bit. I said, what would it look like if I wanted to run for city council out here in LA or something like that? You know, what's the landscape look like? I actually did look into it once before, you know, but, you know, we'll see what the future holds. That's not anytime soon. Right? I definitely don't have that kind of clout or notoriety to be doing something like that at this point. But you never know. You never know. Now, what I want to do is I want to shift over to a issue that's currently happening. I believe this is on the west side of Chicago, and many of you are aware of this already. So let me pull this up for you. I want to pull up a very specific tweet. But before we do that, there are 256 of you in the live stream right now. Please hit the like button if you have not already. Please do that. That is the most important thing you can do for this channel. And the second most important thing you can do for this channel is show your support to the channel, as Bounds Prosperity does and has and always does. I thank you very much, Bounds Prosperity, for always showing love to this channel. Bounds Prosperity said, Chicago, blast your aldermen's phones and wear them down to allow us to vote on this matter. No sanctuary city. We are the people, and pay their salaries. I'm actually going to get to that coming towards the end of this live stream concerning the referendum to put the ending of sanctuary cities on the ballot in Chicago next year. But that's coming down more closer to the end of the live stream. But what I want to do now is shift over to this tweet very quickly. And let me read this off for you guys. Many of you might be aware of this already. Some of you might not be. But the tweet reads as such. Let me pull this up. And it's a very sad thing to see these very critical resources taking away from Black Chicago. And Brandon Johnson is silent about this, right? He has nothing to say. He's not acknowledging any of it. So this tweet reads as such. These Chicago kids are from the Amundsen Park. I know I'm pronouncing that name wrong. Just my apologies. These Chicago kids are from the Munson Park Youth Football Program in the Austin neighborhood that will be kicked out. Oh my God. My apologies. These Chicago kids from the Munson Park Youth Football Program in the Austin neighborhood will be kicked out of their neighborhood field house so it can become a migrant shelter Monday. Over 600 residents met last night here to oppose this. Now, what I want to do is play a little bit of what the alderman had to say, and that's him right there who you see on your screen. The alderman, he's the 29th Ward alderman. His name is Christopher Talifero. I believe his last name is pronounced. This is him right here. He is the alderman of where that park is. And I want you all to just take a listen to what he had to say while he was at that meeting last night. I think it's very important. So let's get into that right now.
One for coming out. This, in my opinion, has been one of the most difficult situations that we've had in the city of Chicago. This past Friday, and so that I could chronologically let you know as far as what I have found out. This past Friday, I spoke to the mayor's office, the mayor's deputy mayor, or the deputy chief of staff, who informed me Friday morning that we were going to have a shelter at this particular location.
One of the things that you'll notice and that is important to continue to highlight with the Johnson administration is that they always keep the aldermen out of the loop. They always keep them out of the loop, and they always inform them that a migrant shelter is coming about 4 or 5 days out. They gave them about a week's time tops, 6 to 7 days. They never let them know what's happening ahead of time to give them a chance to actually make some sort of adjustments or maybe push back against it. They never do that. The Johnson administration never does this, ever. He always pops these migrant shelters on them last minute. But let's carry on to what the alderman had to say.
You're gonna be allowed to speak. And is the speaker? When I spoke with the deputy chief of staff, she informed me that we would have this shelter here at this location, and I strongly object to it, and I object to it now. And I'm not saying that because I want your applause. I'm saying that because we cannot take a resource from our community. I have told the mayor this, I've told the superintendent of our parks this, and I will state it to the top of the roof. We cannot take resources from the black community, a community invested in. Now I say this, those seniors that come to this park know that I come here every fourth Thursday.
I'm going to rewind this back just a little bit, but I just wanted to say this. I don't believe what he's saying. I don't believe him, and I'm going to tell you why I don't believe him in just a moment. I believe everything that this alderman is currently engaging in is theater. That's what I believe, and I'll tell you why in a moment, but let's carry on with this.
Invested in. Now I say this, those seniors that come to this park know that I come here the fourth Thursday of every month with them. I know of the programming that's in this park, but there's so many other reasons why this park should not, and not just this park, but any park, should not be converted to a migrant shelter. First of all, we deal with security issues. Now, particularly in this area, our police officers have been working tirelessly to help reduce violence in the Amundsen Park area, in the North Austin area. And this, by no way, helps them in their efforts in reducing crime. I say, secondly, I believe in a democracy. I believe in a democratic process that says before you make these decisions need to be brought to the community. Now, I will say this. There's some out there that say, we want to see the email. I can show you every email I have. You come sit down with me, I will go through every email. But there are no emails with regard to this. I received a phone call Friday that this was going to be a shelter.
Once again, like I said, Brandon Johnson and his administration always keeps the alderman in the dark. There is no conversation ahead of time.
Now, one other reason that we do not need this as a shelter. We have for months, and even beyond months, we have been telling our youth, if I could please speak, we've been telling our youth not to go downtown, not to gather in mass, not to commit crimes downtown, because we want to provide opportunities for you in your community. Well, this specifically flies in the face of that, and it takes a very valuable resource from our youth. Our seniors have been able to walk across the street and enjoy programming here. It would be extremely difficult for them to walk a mile and a half or even get a mile and a half from here to continue their senior program. So I ask you, and I have never asked this of the community before, I ask you to join me and stand up against allowing this to become a shelter. Now, guys, hold on, stop.
Now, I just want to take a moment to discuss why I don't believe him very quickly, right? Because I don't believe anything that he's saying at all. Number one, the first thing is this, right? That alderman from the 29th district, he, just like Jeanette Taylor, who was an alderman that people speak very highly of. I've always heard good things about her. You know, prior to this migrant crisis situation, I've always heard good things about her, you know. But he, just like Jeanette Taylor, they both voted for the $51 million to get distributed to this migrant crisis situation. Um, that was a highly contested bill, and there was a lot of debate surrounding that, because you had many saying, if you're pulling this $51 million from wherever you're pulling it from, because at the time they didn't even know where they were going to get it from, right? Then some of this money needs to come to our communities, the Black community. And if you can't do that, then you need to find out where you can get some more money at, just like how you found out where to get that money from to distribute it within the Black community to build up the resources that we need in our neighborhoods. There was never a real fight put up with the aldermen to actually put a stop to that bill. There was no real fight. Out of the 13 aldermen who voted against it, 7 of them were Black. And of those seven, neither one of them were Jeanette Taylor or the individual that you saw speaking right now. So that's strike one. You didn't push back. You didn't attempt to fight. You didn't play hardball. There are enough Black aldermen within Chicago that they could have played hardball and said, we're all going to vote no on this unless you ensure us that you're going to divide that $51 million evenly amongst us in our community as well. Or you expand on this, and instead of $51 million, I don't know, whatever, it's $80 million. Then $30 million is coming our way. They didn't play hardball at all. And that's the point that I'm making. There was no hardball being played. They just voted yes. So that's strike one. And then strike two is the fact that none of them, particularly this gentleman, right? Let's just stick with him, but Jeanette Taylor as well. None of them are getting behind the alderman by the name of Anthony Beale, who is a Black man and Democrat as well, who's essentially standing alone with the referendum that he's attempting to add to next year's, I believe, primary election in Chicago, in which the ending of sanctuary cities will be on the ballot. Nobody is supporting this man. Let me pull up this article right now. I've spoken on it once before. I think I have it up right now. I don't, but hopefully I can pull this up quickly. Yeah, it's right here. Okay, let's go to this article very quickly. I'm just going to read one sentence from off of it, right? But here it goes, and it should be popping up on the screen very shortly. There are 440 of you in the live stream right now. Please hit the like button if you haven't already. Please hit the like button. That is one of the most important. That is the most important thing that you can do. That is the most important thing you can do. So this article here comes from CBS News Chicago, titled "Two Aldermen Want Voters to Decide If Chicago Should Remain a sanctuary city for migrants." Right? And like I said, I just want to read one sentence that I have highlighted here. Alderman Anthony Napoliano, that's not how you pronounce his name, but I can't pronounce his name. Anthony Napoliano, he is an independent who was a former Republican, right? Him and Anthony Beale, who was a Black Democrat, have sponsored a resolution to add a referendum to March 2024 primary ballots in Chicago, asking voters if the city should keep its sanctuary city designation. Okay? Out of all the old aldermen in Chicago, only two are trying to get this on the ballot. Only two. And none of the other aldermen support them on this. This is once again why I say the gentleman who was speaking earlier, the alderman who was speaking earlier, Christopher, he's lying. I don't believe anything that's coming out of his mouth. If March 2024 comes around and they have not gotten behind making the referendum to the March 2024 primary ballots to put that resolution in which sanctuary cities or the ending of the sanctuary city status will be on the ballot. If that time period comes around and it's not on the ballot, and on top of it not being on the ballot, you don't see Christopher or any of your other aldermen in Chicago have gotten behind it to get it on the ballot, that's strike two and you're out. I don't believe in 3 strikes. You get 2 strikes with me. To be honest with me, you really get 1 strike. But, you know, for the sake of the discussion right now, we'll say 2 strikes. They already voted for the $51 million without resistance, and now nobody is getting behind Anthony Beale and Anthony Napolitano, I believe that's how you pronounce his name. Nobody's getting behind them to get rid of the sanctuary city status in Chicago. So that's why I don't believe him. But secondly, what I want to focus on as well, and continue to highlight, is the trend that I keep repeating, that Brandon Johnson makes it a point to keep all the aldermen in the dark. He keeps them in the dark. And third, I want to quote what the alderman said concerning, you know, democracy and kind of voting and keeping the people informed, right? He said, before you make these decisions need to be brought to the community, right? Meaning you have to give the community an opportunity to either say yay or nay to this, and to be able to properly engage in a democratic fashion so that we can decide, those of us of the community, we can decide whether or not we want this to be here. And if we do decide we want it to be here, we'll make the decisions in our community of how much we're willing to give up. I find it funny, very interesting, very ironic, if I'm using that word correctly, that the Democrats love to talk about, you know, democracy is on the ballot, right? Our democracy is at stake. They love to talk about, you know, voter suppression by Republicans, right? I haven't played this in a long time, because, you know, the Republicans, they're going to put us all back in chain if they get in power, you know?
They're going to put you all back in chains.
That's what's going to happen. Lord knows we can't let the Republicans get back into power.
They're going to put you all back in chains.
They're going to put us back in chains, right? They love talking about that. But when it comes to letting the people of Chicago, which is a Democratic city, Illinois is a Democratic state, a super Democrat majority across the board, when it comes to letting the people of Chicago decide what they actually want, they're not interested in that. They do what they want to do. Now, what I want to do is pivot to another gentleman who took the time to speak at this event. And I want you all to hear what he has to say, because he made some very interesting remarks as it pertains to the voting process and what should have happened for Brandon Johnson to be able to take that park away from the community. So let me play that clip for you right now as well.
You have a Chicago Park.
Let me rewind that back. And there are 490 of you in here right now. Please hit the like button if you haven't already. Thank you.
One thing about this is Chicago Park District facility. You have a Chicago Park District Board of Commissioners. They never voted on turning this into a migrant center. So
I want to rewind that back because that's very important. There were no votes. There were no votes. There is a democratic process, right, that they're supposed to go through if they want to be able to do something like that. And the Democratic Party is supposed to be the party of democracy, right? That's what they say. That's how they like to pretend who they are, right? That's what they tell us. They want to protect democracy and they want to protect Black Americans against voter suppression. But as you can see in the city of Chicago, which is Democrat from top to bottom, they don't really care about what you think and how you feel. What democracy? What voting? Where? We don't do that here.
So, yes, one thing about this is Chicago Park District facility. You have a Chicago Park District Board of Commissioners. They never voted on turning this into a migrant center. So, yes, thank you. Looking at tax bill. And it's like they don't even go through the process of going through the Board of Commissioners, not going through the community and doing this to us. See, people talk about, and I'm going to defer some of my time to my wife, is the fact, I always try to talk before her because I never want to go behind her. But people got to talk about the fact, it's like, they ain't taking nothing away from you. It's enough for all of us. No, it's not. No, it's not.
That is Brandon Johnson's talking point that he's addressing right now. Brandon Johnson has said 1,000,001 times that there's enough for all of us. This gentleman is laying it out straight. No, there is not.
People got to talk about the fact, it's like, they ain't taking nothing away from you. It's enough for all of us. No, it's not. No, it's not. Now they're taking away an asset that people worked 30 years. My buddy worked years to put together programs that they're taking away from us, black people, with a black mayor, can't miss that point, from this community. And it's like, what insanity, what are we going to hear from them that's going to change our minds from no and not taking out our part? And the last thing I ask of you, please, please call Anthony Bill, call all the aldermen and say support Alderman Anthony's bill ordinance for a referendum on whether Chicago remain a sanctuary city. And think about it, this bill is not, it's not to say kick off the migrants that's already here. It's to a point we just got to say no. Because if you all got a $500 million, because it's $300 million now, and by Christmas in January it's going to be $500 million. Now, if you got $500 million laying around, I want to be in your family. First of all, I want to be your third cousin once removed. But the reality is, it's got to say no, because that's the simple solution. Is no. Turn the buses around.
Mr. Trush, you got about
Turn
15 seconds left.
Thank you.
Hold on, Ms. Trush. Ms. Trush.
I want to take a quick moment and shout out to Bounce Prosperity. Bounce Prosperity being the third person and the only person who has been contributing to today's stream. I thank you very much, Bounce Prosperity, who continues to show love throughout the duration of this stream. He said the illegals are stealing from the local stores and get a catch and release by police. Different rules apply to citizens. We must stand or sink red. And I want to take a moment because I was kind of just briefly skimming through Blexit the Communitize comments that he's leaving, because apparently Blexit the Community, I'm always a little skeptical of, brothers that say, if you are a brother, I don't know, but when they say the community, that's no, for me, that's normally kind of a red flag. Whenever I hear brothers say the black community, my antennas go up a little bit, because I know it kind of follows behind that a lot of times. But you were saying some very interesting things, and I want to address that, right? So this alderman that was speaking, he said, is my alderman, and I live by a Munson Park. I'm never voting for another alderman again if he doesn't support the move to end sanctuary city status. Blexit continues to say, I told him a million times to stop voting for people just because they are black. That's what Blexit the Community says. He continues to say, I gotta go to the park tonight. They're working in shifts to guard it. And Blexit continues to say, a Munson Park does not play. Don't let the nice houses, pretty lawns, and quiet streets fool you. They'll turn up down there. That cop on stage is anti-black. Oh, I didn't put it up there. This is the last one I'm going to read because Blexit's saying a lot, but I do think this is interesting what he's saying since he lives in the area. That cop on stage is anti-black. He got all the Hispanic cops at the park right now. That is very interesting. Let's bring this back up really quick so we see if we can get a better look at him. I think he's talking about that individual right there. Can we get a better visual of him? So that's him right there. Blexit said that cop on stage is anti-black. He got all the Hispanic cops at the park right now. So I guess you could say that's breaking news from Blexit, the community who lives in the community. He said they got the Hispanic cops guarding the park right now. They're not letting anybody over there. Oh, okay. His name is Officer Perez. Officer Perez. They have all the Hispanic cops guarding Munson Park right now. Well, there goes your democracy, right? There goes your democracy with the black mayor, enforcing this on a black neighborhood with no care at all. What happened to all that West Side talk? Oh, the West Side is in the building tonight. The West Side has made it to the mayor's office. That all went out the window real quick, didn't it? And if I'm not mistaken, in Blexit, the community, since you live in the area, Munson Park is the West Side of Chicago, is it not? I believe it is the West Side of Chicago. And why that's significant? Why that's significant in me bringing that up is because it wasn't too long ago, and I did a video on this, where Brandon Johnson very quickly, he was in and out fast. Because here's another thing that you all should pay attention to as well. Notice how Brandon Johnson is never at any of these community events. When was the last time you've seen Brandon Johnson at any of these community events, these press conferences, these town halls, these meetings filled with the black residents of Chicago, where he was present to hear them out and communicate with them directly? When was the last time you've seen that? I haven't seen that at all since he's been in office. Haven't seen it at all. He ignores you 100%. 100%. Thank you, Joshua Martinez. Joshua Martinez says, hope things remain peaceful, but I wonder why Black lives don't matter to BLM now. This is more detrimental to the Black community than anything in 2020. I'm going to read that again. Hope things remain peaceful, but I wonder why Black lives don't matter to Black BLM now. This is detrimental. This is detrimental to the Black community more than anything in 2020. That's a good question. Where is Black Lives Matter? Shouldn't they be in the mix of all this? Where is BLM Chicago? Where is Black Lives Matter, the Chicago chapter? And why aren't they on the front lines to, assist the Black community that they're supposed to care so much about? It's a great question, Joshua. That is a great question. A great statement that you made. But here's something that's even more interesting as we close. There are 563 of you all in the live stream right now. Please hit that like button if you haven't already. Please do that. That is the most important thing you can do, is hit that like button. And shout out to Blacklight Revelations jumping into the live stream all late. Good brother Rob, Blacklight Revelations. You late. Live stream is about to be over, bro. But I appreciate you coming through anyways. But the last thing that I want to get into is this. One last video before we go. As I was preparing this live stream and getting it together, I was on YouTube, and then like the little right hand corner, because I'm on YouTube on my laptop, right? I'm on YouTube, and you see your recommendations on the side, and I think I have this pulled up. Hopefully I do. Yes, I do. And this is what was pulled up on the side. I will show you all right now. It was this video, and it threw me for a loop, because if we're going, me making a live stream titled Brandon Johnson Ignores Black Chicago's Concerns About Migrant Crisis Impact, when I make and prepare for a live stream like that, right? That's titled that. And on the thumbnail, it says Brandon Johnson doesn't care about Black people. But then you see this video pops up. Let me remove this Rob off the screen. But then I see this video pop up in the right-hand corner. My recommends titled Chicago Mayor. I'm hearing loud and clear from our Black residents in particular about migrants. When I saw that, I said, uh-oh, this might throw a chink in my whole live stream. I might have to scrap the live stream now, depending on what Brandon Johnson had to say. So now let's hear from Brandon Johnson, because apparently Brandon Johnson is going to actually, for once, speak to the Black community in terms of what they feel about the current migrant crisis, or I should say the Biden crisis, really. That's what it's called, the Biden crisis, right? But before we listen to it, I have to preface it with this, right? The talk of the town in Chicago right now is the Biden crisis. That is the talk of the town. That's what everyone's speaking about. That's what everyone is upset about. The Biden crisis in Chicago has Black folks, a brother that I know personally, who's like a brother to me, one of my dear friends. We spoke about 2 weeks ago, and I'm smiling because you know who you are. I'm not going to say your name on the live stream. I'm not going to do you like that, bro. But you know you will vote blue no matter who, ninja. Boy, you be voting blue. He love him some Barack Obama and Kamala Harris. I talked about him plenty of times out here before. My man loved to vote blue. But this whole Biden crisis situation, and I was dying laughing when he told me this, has him seriously considering to make America great again. No lie. And he was dead serious. He was dead serious. He was dead serious. He said, hey, man, I'm going to have to make America great again, bro. I can't do this no more. Kamala and them are going to have to take a seat. And that's actually the talk of the town in the city amongst Black people, because Black Americans in Chicago are frustrated with the fact that they're watching critical resources being taken out of their community and given to somebody else. High schools being snatched from Black neighborhoods and given to somebody else. These are critical resources. Parks and recreation centers with programs for juniors and seniors and football programs, these safe spaces, places where your children can go to and your grandmother can go to enjoy themselves, have a safe space, maybe get away from the madness of the world and just be at peace, have a little fun, enjoy themselves. Sign your son up to the football program, keep them off those video games, actually go outside and do something, use your brain. They're removing those resources. That's what's happening. And that's what Black Chicago is upset about. The removal of critical resources from already hurting communities to give them to somebody else. Meanwhile, at the same time, watching millions of dollars, 430 million to be exact, being poured into this Biden crisis, where prior to the Biden crisis, you had a multitude of organizations within the Black community that are doing everything they can to stop the violence, stop crime, and put together programs within their community to stem these things. You have all these organizations that exist in Black Chicago, contrary to popular belief. The idea that Black Chicago does not care about their neighborhoods and their community is a lie. There are an abundance of organizations out there doing everything that they can. And they've attempted to partner with the local government, and the local government tells them, hey, we can't help you. We don't have the funds. We don't know where we're going to get the money from for these programs that you'd like to implement in your community, right? That's the talk of the town. So now let's play what Brandon Johnson had to say. And you tell me whether or not Brandon Johnson is actually addressing the concerns and frustrations of Black Chicago surrounding the Biden crisis. You let me know if he's actually addressing that. So I'm going to play that for you right now. There are 600 of you in the live stream right now. Please hit that like button if you haven't already.
Dog anymore, don't worry. My question is about some remarks that the governor made yesterday. He alluded to the fact that they might not be providing more funding to the city for migrant aid, help with housing. Have you had that conversation with him and talked about that specifically?
Well, what we've talked about, first of all, I'm grateful for the work that has been done. And again, the people of Chicago, we're being asked and quite frankly tasked with carrying the vast majority of this responsibility. I know that the leadership in the state of Illinois recognizes the importance of Chicago. And the only thing that I can do is do my part. And I'm asking other folks to do their part. And as I've said multiple times, that the weight and the brunt of this sacrifice has been on Chicagoans, and I'm hearing loud and clear from our black residents in particular that they have high expectations, as they should. It's why making sure that we pass one fair wage was a priority of mine, because the vast majority of individuals are black and brown women who are doing the work. It's why we're going to bring Chicago home. The vast majority of people who are unhoused in this city are black people. You know, it's why we're committed to passing treatment, not trauma, and opening our mental health centers and making sure that we have an alternative response to mental health crises, because those who are overwhelmingly impacted by brutality are black people. And there's still more work to be done. You know, so I'm going to continue to do my part. I've expressed that the state has to do more. I've expressed that the federal government has to do more. And that's just where we are today. Thank you.
Yeah, Kerry Jones, Black and Brown, Benign Neglect 101. Did it sound like he addressed any of the actual concerns? Once again, the talk of the town in Chicago, within Black Chicago, it's not fair wages right now. It's not fair wages. It's not the need for mental health facilities. You know, it's none of the things that he was saying just now. The talk of the town in that city, if you ask anybody that's actually there, and you know people that are there, remember, I'm from Chicago. All my family's in Chicago. I'm the only crazy that left Chicago and moved to Los Angeles. Everybody else is back home. So I know what's going on. Okay. The talk of the town is not any of the things that he said amongst black people. The talk of the town within Black Chicago is this Biden crisis and how critical resources are being extracted from the black community over there to be given to someone else. And he didn't acknowledge any of that. He acknowledged none of that at all, because he doesn't care. He gave you the stock Democratic Party answer where they pick at a certain disparity and say, oh, well, I just signed into law the Fair Wages Act. That's what he just said, wasn't it? The Fair Wages Act. Because we know, Black Americans are disproportionately affected by this. So it's going to help women, Black and Brown. Black and Brown? What? It's going to help Black and Brown women, and we're going to open up mental health facilities, and, we're going to bring Chicago home. What are you talking about? No one's speaking about that in Chicago. That is not the talk of the town in Chicago. He's not addressing anything. He's addressing nothing that's actually going on over there, and nothing that the people are actually speaking on over there. He's giving you the typical Democratic Party benign neglect answer. You pick a disparity, because the main disparity, the one that matters the most, the racial wealth gap, that one you leave as is. And you leave that as is, and you never actually address that, because as long as that disparity exists, all the other ones will continue to exist and persist as well. So what you do is you do fake patchwork by selecting a random disparity and saying, well, hey, I'm signing this Fair Wages Law Act into law, since Black Americans are disproportionately working these jobs where they don't receive fair wages. I just signed this law so that Black and Brown people, minorities, and marginalized groups will receive fair wages. All this in the face of the fact, in closing, and many of you remember this, he's sitting here talking about fair wages, which is funny, and how all this is going to disproportionately help Black people in Chicago. All this flying in the face of the fact that, how many of you remember this back in July? Black workers comprise 90% of recent unemployment spike data shows. Black folks aren't even finding jobs. Black folks are out here getting laid off and let go. Black workers are comprising of 90% of recent unemployment spike. Now, mind you, this was back in July, but, I'm going to read this off. A new Bureau of Labor Statistics report published Friday found that Black Americans make up nearly 90% of those who are unemployed in the U.S. since April. Black workers made up about 267,000 out of the 300,000 new unemployment cases this spring. The report says the current unemployment rate of the demographics sits at 6%, nearly twice the rate of white employment, which sits at 3.1%. But yeah, hey, don't worry about it, Black Chicago. I'm increasing minimum wage. And with all that being said, that does it for today's stream. I want to thank you all for joining me today, and you all have a great evening. Thank you very much, Bounce Prosperity. I'm actually in a rush, so now I got to run. I can't read the rest of these super chats off, but thank you, Joshua Martinez. Thank you, Dre Harden. Thank you very much, Cynthia McDonald, Courtney Smith, and FBA Bro Reese. Thank you very much, and you all have a great evening. And hit that like button on your way out. Peace.